Welcome back to E-Time's live coverage of the 2011 DesignCon from Santa Clara, California, the Convention Center, hard by the mecca of the National Football League, 49ers headquarters. Well, it used to be. Not so much anymore. So here with us now for our next 15-minute segment is GMartin, Chief Scientist from Tensilica. Grant, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Brian.
So you had a rather interesting near brush with a problem. You went to Russia recently and missed the airport bombing by a few hours in a different airport. When did you actually find out what was going on?
I found out about what was happening there the morning when I was about to take off that afternoon for the flight. First a flight to Los Angeles and then the Aeroflot flight to Sheremetyevo in Moscow. But we did find out that it was at a different airport and that although the flight was delayed an hour, that there was basically no impact.
Wow.
So we went ahead on the trip and it was a very fruitful and useful trip to make.
Oh, okay. So we'll talk about that a little bit, but that must have been nerve-wracking for a bit?
A little bit until we found out what was going on, but the internet is pretty good at separating out details and facts from rumors. So in a few hours we were able to get a full, clear picture of the situation. So
you've now been at Tensilica for about 7 years after coming from Cadence and Cadence Berkeley Labs. Are you still surprised that your CEO drives a Volkswagen?
No, not really. I'm still driving the same car I was driving as well. He likes driving it, so. But he's actually, you said CEO, he's actually the Chief Technology Officer now.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
So you go away for 3 years and...
We have a CEO from the last 3 years named Jack Gage.
Oh, okay.
So, but Chris is still extremely heavily and deeply involved in all aspects of technology and applications, including pushing our technology forward to the next generation. So he's still having a lot of fun.
Okay, so you, I'm going to ask you that question in a second, but since you talked about technology, let's talk about technology and Tensilica technology in particular. You've been working for the last couple of years on baseband DSP architectures for Tensilica. Talk to us a little bit about that.
We've found a lot of interest, especially as wireless is moving on to the new standards, or the relatively new standards of LTE, and then LTE advanced in the future. A lot of interest in applying our technology to build very high performance and specialized DSPs for advanced wireless standards. And I've been involved in that activity in helping get the cores designed and out to customers, and we're having a pretty good take-up of our baseband DSPs in those application areas. We continue to advance both the base technology and the kinds of DSPs and DSP functions that we can put on them, and I think we're making a lot of progress and people are very interested. One key difference in what Tensilica can offer is, as well as a high level of capability in the baseband DSPs, we still offer the ability for people to tailor them further to their particular applications and their particular algorithms and their own unique ways of solving and applying the technology, so they can still differentiate even though they're building on a very well-developed base that we offer.
Yeah, that's always been your differentiator, which is customizable microprocessor cores now moving into DSPs. What, I mean, you mentioned LTE and LTE advanced. The requirements on the design of the chip itself must be extraordinary for both power and performance.
They are, and in fact that's another reason power and performance and optimizing power and performance is another reason to use an extensible DSP, an extensible processor as a base, because you can find particular ways of implementing algorithms using your own instructions or our advanced instructions that are very power economical. So this is especially suitable for user equipment, but it can also be suitable to get more performance out of the same silicon if you're doing a base station at various levels. So we think our technology has very wide applicability in the whole area of baseband, as well as in other processor performance intensive areas such as audio and other areas people have applied the Tensilica technology.
So that's an advantage to VLIW, your sort of base technology?
VLIW, but in doing wireless processing, audio processing, etc., there's also a fair amount of SIMD, of vector-type processing, and we offer that as part of the base technology as well. You can actually combine unique instructions, SIMD-style vector instructions, VLIW-style instructions, all in common base technology as you develop instruction sets built on top of that.
So you are on a panel tomorrow, I think, moderated by my buddy, Ron Wilson. And the panel is called Who's the Designer of the Future? Which is sort of the $64,000 question, particularly if you put it in the context of the last 15 years of the evolution of design. Does that designer have an Indian or a Chinese name? Is he even a he?
There are designers from every country, but certainly there is a profound growth of design, in particular in China and Greater China, as well as other parts of Asia. There is some design growth in India, although I would argue probably still more software development growth in India than a lot of hardware-oriented design. But China and Greater China is certainly seeing an increase in the amount of design activity that's going on there.
Now, is that, so getting back to the designer of the future, that on the one hand, plus the fact that we're going to greater and greater levels of abstraction, how is that evolution going? Is it being restricted to particular geographies with advanced engineering academic institutions, or is it being proliferated to India and China and other places like that as well?
I see advanced design going on in every geography that's doing design at all. There really isn't a differentiation. In China, for example, people are working on very advanced systems on chip, and highly integrated systems for application in China and around the world as products. Some of the lead companies in China are competitive and can compete with any other company around the world, and they're doing that now. So they're using advanced technology, they're taking it up, and I don't see a strong national characteristic anymore, if there ever was one, in the way in which people are applying technology.
Do you guys have a foothold in some of those geographies?
We do indeed. We have customers in China, we have strong customers in Japan, as well as in Europe and North America. So we cover the world in the application of our technology.
And so, and the Russia trip, was that, do you have a group there? Are you building a group there? What's going on?
That was to actually visit a partner, people we collaborate with on software development.
Okay, and that went well.
Russia is one country that has not had much participation in worldwide design. They do indigenous design for Russian applications. They do software. They've been doing software for a number of years. I actually, when I worked for Nortel 18 years ago, visited Russia for the first time, and that was to work with a couple of design groups. So they have had some level of participation. I think it will grow in the future, but they have some transitions to do in their economy, and perhaps a move away eventually from dependence on natural resources and re-emphasize engineering, in which they are very strong.
You have to stop killing reporters too. Sorry, a little editorial comment there. In those 18 years, how have you seen the design engineering world there change?
Well, actually, I think some of their big centralized institutions, some of their big internal semiconductor companies, have struggled over the years to try and really find their right niche and role in the worldwide semiconductor economy. The actual hardware design, they're not yet really designing products for world needs in the same way that companies in India a bit, and certainly China, are designing products for world needs. So they're not quite there yet. One thing they are doing is software development of various kinds. That's growing a bit. That may be their leading edge development. But eventually, I think their hardware development skills will probably come to the fore in particular applications. They'll need to work on what those applications are and think of a world market rather than just an indigenous market.
So how do you, as a company, this is sort of an off the beaten path kind of question, but how do you manage because I used to work with an engineering group that was in Armenia, and they're all PhDs. They're brilliant guys, absolutely brilliant. But they have a legacy of having been part of the Soviet Union for years and years and years, where there's a certain, how to put this politely, clamp down on creativity. So how do you take the best, or how do you encourage creativity in those groups in the former Soviet bloc countries to get it to sort of match with Western or European creativity in terms of design?
I actually didn't find a particular creativity gap. I think 18 years ago, 19 years ago, when we were working with companies in Russia, when I was at Nortel, the designers there had not been exposed to the most advanced technology. And when they were exposed to that, they were able to combine good creativity and design skills, and this was in mixed analog digital mixed signal design. They were able to combine that along with a mathematical rigor and an analytical rigor that perhaps is a little lacking in North America in terms of designers. So they actually combined that very well. Working with partners most recently, software development, they have not been necessarily exposed to our kind of configurable extensible processor technology, and once they get used to that kind of technology, they can apply their very high level of mathematical skill and rigor to developing software for that environment, and the results are pretty promising.
Progress.
Very
Absolutely.
good progress.
Progress. So speaking of progress, let's talk a little bit about ESL. What's the latest there? It's sort of fallen off my radar screen. Like I said, I was away from EE-Times for about 3 years. Come back, the world's changed. What are you seeing?
The world's changed, but in the way that was predicted a decade ago. So more than a decade ago, I participated with some colleagues in an observation of the world on advanced SoC design called platform-based design, in which the theory was that people would design chips at a higher level, composed of subsystems. They would use more processors, they would model that, and they would provide models of those designs to software developers who would then use that as the basis for software development and verification. And today that vision is being realized. Every advanced SoC design, especially any multiprocessor design, is using a platform-oriented and a virtual platform-based design methodology to provide things to software users, software developers, so that they can verify their software and figure out its characteristics and optimize it well in advance of having the actual physical chip or SoC available to them. And that methodology is really playing out.
Wow. It's great to see that there can be some predictability in our predictions.
Well, interesting. Our prediction, some people said at the time we were trying to change the way people did design. We were actually just observing what some of the most advanced companies were doing. In fact, I was talking to someone, and we were reminiscing. Some of the people we were observing was what was going on in VLSI technology at that time, that later became part of Philips Semiconductor, and now there are probably still some vestiges of it in NXP.
So I notice we're going to wrap this one up pretty shortly, but we have some viewers out there live, none of which are my relatives, I don't think, which is going to come home to haunt you. If you have any questions, you can shoot them at us through the handy-dandy chat feature that I should have coded up if you're watching it on eetimes.com, and maybe a function of the Facebook thing as well. Otherwise, we're going to, I'll keep one eye on that and sort of walleye out back to Grant and ask you, do you guys have a presence here other than your participation on the panel?
No, we're not participating in this conference. We tend to specialize in conferences to do with application areas. For example, we'll have a strong presence in a couple weeks' time at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. So if there's anyone out there who's going to MWC, I encourage them to visit our Tensilica booth there and look at demos we'll be having and find out a little bit more.
And you have a very big announcement coming out Monday, according to Paula at Tensilica, and I haven't been able to check my email, Paula, so I don't know whether he can spill any sort of beans, but you do have something coming down the pike.
There will be no bean spilling from me, but I can indeed confirm that we'll have some interesting announcements come out about ways in which our technology is advancing and will be used in more advanced ways over the next while.
Is this your biggest announcement of the year, you think?
I can't really say, but certainly the time frame and the application area makes it an important time of year for us.
Good, good. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up with Grant Martin, Chief Scientist from Tensilica and all-around patient fellow. And we're going to take a little break now, and we'll be back with our next guest in about 4 minutes. Either that or you lost a thumb, and it's going to be 5 minutes. Grant, thanks.
Thanks, Brian.